Welcome to Everything CPA and Private Equity, where we unpack the evolving relationship between accounting firms, private equity, and other strategics. I'm David Wolfskehl, a partner at Whitman Transition Advisors.
And I'm Phil Whitman, CEO of Whitman Transition Advisors. And we've chatted with more than 150 private equity groups. We've actually closed over 40 transactions with those private equity groups. And we're bringing you firsthand insights from the front lines.
And whether you're exploring your first deal, putting your toe in the water, refining your strategy, we're here to guide you with real stories, expert advice, actionable takeaways. Let's dive in. Welcome everybody to another episode of Everything CPA and Private Equity, where we're here to educate you, to help you on your journey of your CPA firm. Today I'm here with Phil Whitman and David Kells, two members of the Whitman Transition team. And we're going to focus on the firms that aren't quite ready. So Phil, why don't you share what you've been seeing in the marketplace of, is every firm ready to take an investment or even sell at this point?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I would say probably 50%, maybe slightly more of CPA firms absolutely are not ready and may not even qualify to be a partner with private equity to take an investment from one of these private equity groups. I mean, the profitability just isn't strong enough to warrant a scrape. And so we know that there are not enough economies that are just going to come from perhaps, hey, we're going to save rent and insurance and technology costs. There needs to be a contribution from partner compensation. So, typically, the best of the best firms, a significant amount of the leave behind EBITDA is coming from a contribution margin from partner compensation, a reduction in partner compensation. So that means it's essential that a firm be at least very profitable, if not uber profitable.
And for a long time, we've been doing M&A deals before private equity and the other players have come in. And for a long time, profitability in the M&A marketplace was not all that important. It mattered a little bit, but it wasn't that important. But now, if you don't have that profitability in place, very difficult for you to come up with a number that makes you excited. So one of the things that we've done is added a profit team, because we know many firms want to be available and have this as an option. And quite frankly, even if you're not looking to sell, increasing profits means you're running the business better, you're able to compete better. So Dave is the leader of our profit team. So why don't you share a couple of low-hanging fruits, or at least some places that you need to be considering when you're looking to increase profits?
Oh, and one moment, Dave, before you do that, we know this because you're our esteemed leader of that team. But for some of our new listeners out there that don't know this, Dave was the former COO of Citrin Cooperman, the giant CPA firm that just had their first turn with private equity. And Dave, I think it would behoove us to have you share with some of your roles and responsibilities as that COO of Citrin, as they, went from less than 100 million to almost 400 million while you were there.
Yeah, and thanks, Phil, and David. To your point, firms getting ready. I think it starts with a commitment to invest in your firm and not strip out every dollar of profit and distribute it. So the firms that are ready or that are profitable have made that commitment into learning and development, into technology, human resources across the board, offshoring, efficient solutions, vendor relationships, etc. So you really got to look at it top to bottom. And Phil, you're right. Private equity is going to come in here and solve your problems, right? Why not you solve your problems ahead of time, make your firm more profitable, make your firm more attractive, and that's what we do. We'll look at the level of investment that you have made in technology, because every firm is using some sort of tech stack, but a vast majority of firms don't utilize what they're paying for to its fullest, and certainly not as efficient as they can. So we'll come and take a look at all of that. Excuse me. And that's the low hanging fruit. And every private equity group, any outside investor is going to come in and put offshoring to some degree in as a solution. I think firms need to educate themselves that they're not doing it now, or to take a look at what they're doing and make it more efficient and more profitable for them. There's many different flavors, if you will, of offshoring, and it's not a one size fits all. There is a science to this, and we have experts on our team that definitely handle the offshoring perspective. So we'll look at all of that.
And at Citron, you were already a big offshoring organization, right? And that was somewhat of a driver of the profitability that made you attractive. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement, but it starts at zero, right? Any firm's going to start at zero. So we built a pretty significant offshore operation for ourselves. Our model was this is going to be our office, our people trained our way on our technology. We felt that gave our internal stakeholders confidence in the process because there was pushback, right, internally. And then secondarily, your clients. You don't want any client to be negatively impacted or think that this is not something that they're interested in. But when we educate and build a top-notch process with top-notch people, and highly secure from a data perspective, everybody's comfortable with the process.
And Phil, talking about private equity can solve the problems or you can solve the problems. So what's the impact of you solving the problems or becoming more profitable before private equity comes in? What's the impact on the firm?
So, it's quite astounding, actually. When you look at $1 of additional profits that you put to the bottom line, depending upon the size of the firm, and that this option is available for firms of all sizes. I mean, we've even seen transactions with sole owners of firm, even sole practitioners, up to the very largest of firms. But every dollar could be $4, $5, $10. Now, I don't want to set any unrealistic expectations. When this whole thing started with Eisner Amper, my understanding is, they were somewhere around a 9x. So, I mean, it's quite, surprising to me when I'm working with a firm that's like 5 million or 10 million in total revenues that has decent profitability. And they are sort of saying, I want at least an 8. Well, in order for you to get an 8 multiple, you really have to be a very, very profitable firm. And again, imagine turning $1 into even $6. I mean, if I had that investment for you to make today, I'm sure you would grab at it very quickly.
Right. And in the past, it was an expense and investment, as Dave was really saying. In some ways, we could say this is much more of an investment, right? Because for every dollar, you're going to get a large, large return on that investment. So are you going to do it? And it's not the easiest thing to do. Or are you going to get others to do it? So Dave, let's talk about timelines. So I want to improve the profitability of my firm, right? Is this a 19-year project that never really gets started, or is this something that, in most firms there is low-hanging fruit, and in most firms you can start seeing impacts relatively quickly?
Yeah, you can see the impacts relatively quickly. Offshoring for sure. A mechanism can be built. It might not be your own. It might be a contracted third party, but you're going to see bottom line margin increase day one as soon as you turn the switch on with that. And then I would say if you whiteboard out various processes within the firm, you could certainly weed out inefficiencies. You look at your whole staff roster. Where are you with investing into your staff for future development? Are you contracting with third parties with that? Are you doing in-house CPE? I mean, there's everything, and all of these things have pretty close immediate impact.
And I know, talking about offshoring, we had one client, we have IGT, which does offshoring in the Philippines. In a year, they went from 0 to 30 or 35 people, right? And in that 30 to 35 people was huge, huge dollars for them. So you can have a significant impact on that bottom line and allow you to grow and get better clients as well while you're doing it.
Yeah, I believe that firm had almost a seven-figure impact to their bottom line by adding 35 people, and that's using a third party. Dave, one of the things that I'd like to say, and it brings me back to my days at Burden, and for many of you CPA firm aficionados out there, you know that Burden ultimately was acquired by Citron and recently part of this transaction. Um, I remember when I came into Burden, one of the very simple ways that we increased profitability was looking at write-offs and implementing a policy on write-offs. So I'm not going to give away the store, but one thing here is, just think if you could increase your realization by 1%, and if, you're a $20 million firm, if I do my math right, that's 200,000. Now take 200,000 and multiply it by $6 or $7. That's a significant amount of additional dollars that you and your partners will put in your pockets. So,
Bill, that's absolute. In my opinion, that goes back to the fundamentals, right? We can get away from the fundamentals, but we as accountants sell time, right? Account for your time, bill for your time, and collect for your time, right? If you're not doing that, and you're not doing that as efficient as possible, you're missing out.
I was at BDO last week, I believe, in Chicago, and they used an example of a firm that had $4.3 million worth of write-offs and $1.3 million worth of write-ups, right? And they start training and they identified which partners were the biggest write-offs, and they start training those partners and adding some process, because that's $3 million again, even, and this was maybe a $20 million firm, so this might have been an 8 or a 7. So, $3 million I'm writing off times 7 is a huge amount of dollars. And I think oftentimes that's confidence and that's building process to not make it easy to do. And sometimes it is appropriate to write off. So we're not saying you should never write off things, but you don't want to make it the easiest task for a partner to do with no consequences.
Right. And the billing process in general, right? It's been a headache for busy professionals. You got to do it right. You got to do it timely. These again, I'll just say it again. These are the fundamentals. You send a bill for your work 6 months later, that you're looking at trouble.
Yeah, the value the client is even going to perceive of it, getting a bill 6 months later, is not going to be the same as billing it at the end of the month.
This is just discipline that firms need. Everybody can't act in a silo, right? There has to be firm policies and procedures, accountability, monitoring, reporting. Everybody wants to know. Everybody wants to contribute to the success of the firm.
And what about, and I think, you're saying the basics, but, it's NFL football, right? We see, teams not following the basics. And I think many CPA firms are missing some of those basics. And it's unacceptable for a partner because Joe has always done a lot of write-offs. And so we're never going to talk about Joe. But, one of the changes we're also seeing is more of a corporate structure. And in more of a corporate structure, there's an expectation that everybody plays the same way instead of each partner has that freedom to do it their way. And I think that's hugely impactful as well.
You took the words right out of my mouth, David. You got to get away from saying, oh, that's just Phil, that's just Dave. You really have to have discipline and policies and procedures, and it starts from the top down, and it's got to be trumpeted and echoed throughout the firm. And what I've always found is there were times as opposed to making it something punitive in order to gain compliance. There were times initially where we made it actually, very positive and rewarded people for doing it the right way. There are so many different schools of thought, but you got to get your playbook down. And again, sometimes you say, back to the basics, because you start achieving a certain level of revenue and significant profitability. And I have gone into firms quite a bit, and you see them and you say they've gotten, pardon the expression, fat and happy, fat and lazy. And the size of teams, whether it's practice management teams, becomes very bloated, and it really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I imagine if you take a look at the infrastructure that becomes bloated in excellent times, not that you want to kill your people, but I believe that many firms on the administrative side can do more with less if they implement the appropriate technological and policies and procedures around things.
And Phil, it starts with a willingness to take a look at these things. When I talk to firms all day long, the mentality of, listen, we're doing well. I don't want to upset the apple cart. It's not broken. I don't need to fix it. Well, I posted something yesterday about perspectives, right? Let's take a different perspective on this. Fresh set of eyes on how are things running. And in there, obviously, is profitability that arises out of efficiency or some change in how you're doing things.
And usually efficiency actually makes employees happier, not less happy, because this isn't about giving them more work. I think it's really about making the work easier to get done.
Yeah.
And so just things flow better. And so working smarter, not necessarily harder, is what we're talking about, right? And utilizing the tools that you have.
And I think one of the other things, and you might agree with this, Dave Kells, beware of sacred cows. There's always been in organizations where I've been these people that are sort of have a protectorate. And finally you get approval to make some changes, and you make those changes and you're all proud of it, and all your staff rally around and they say, it's about time, what took you so long?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I couch it a different way a little bit. There's some embedded, and I'll use quotes, problems that just were never addressed, and people just tend to look the other way. You need to attack and make the tough decisions, right? This is a business, and it has to be run the best for your entire population of people.
Let's talk just for a minute or two about partner alignment, because again, if you're not in alignment, we are talking about making investments, right? We're talking about change, all of which is not easy, right? So why don't we talk a little bit about the importance of partner alignment? And Dave, you've helped with 40 plus mergers. WTA, we've already done 25 plus P mergers. Why don't we talk a little bit about the impact of that partner alignment on being able to make change?
Well, we said it before, it starts with the top, but another key element of that is open and transparent communication, right? The messaging has to be, this is what we're doing as a team, this is why we're doing it, and here is our projections and our goals for what the outcomes are going to be. If you're open with your people, partners on down to everybody, they understand the mission, they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and they get on board the train. And there'll be people that question it, there'll be people that push back, but you're committed to your mission, you're committed to your story and your process, and people want to be heard, and they should be heard. Many times in town hall meetings, you get plenty of great feedback, suggestions, etc., and all of that gets kind of put into the giant pot, and out of it comes the plan. So I believe that it all starts with an open, honest, two-way, transparent communication.
That's funny. Mr. Wolfskehl, you'll recall, the four pillars of a world-class firm. Excellent communication, trust, a high degree of trust, alignment of partner goals, and accountability. And when you have all those four things, then you truly can build a world-class firm. But it, as you said, Dave, it all does. It starts with that direct, open, honest communication.
So, one of the things that we saw in Chicago is so much excitement about what's going on in the industry. Phil, I hear you talk about it all the time. There's never been a better time to be an owner of a CPA firm. And with all that being said, we know probably 50% of the firms out there aren't ready. So they hear the results, they hear the big checks, but if they look inside their own house, they're actually not ready to receive those. And so I hope we gave you some ideas today on some of the actions you need to take. And, we've built a team to help support those actions because we know, for those firms that are profitable, for those firms that are in the right place, this is an awesome opportunity. But you need to do some things to get ready for that opportunity. So on behalf of Phil Whitman and David Kells, this is Everything CPA and Private Equity. Appreciate you listening. Please subscribe. I'm sure I'm supposed to say that earlier, but please subscribe so you can hear it. And Phil and David, thank you very much for your insights today.
Thanks, David.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into Everything CPA and Private Equity. Every episode brings fresh insight. However, there's always more to talk about.
Don't miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you watch podcasts. Have a question or topic you'd like us to cover, we'd love for you to reach out to us.
Together, we will help you navigate this dynamic landscape so that we can help you achieve your goals. Until next time, keep making moves that matter.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.